lectures and go from there. So, all right. So,
Okay.
so basically, we start with the first slide, which says that language is everything and defines us as human beings. It reflects our thoughts, our understanding of our world, as reflected in our streaming consciousness. It helps us to build a house and live in it. That's like what I term a moving metaphor. In my talks, I always talk about the importance of a house, living in a house, defining the house, trying to understand what the house looks like and what you need to create that space. Since 2006, we have talked about the importance of houses and homes. The Bible makes reference to this quite a bit, and I'm been very much impressed by that fact. So anger management communication solution treaty stresses the importance of language in recovering from loss, recovering from grief, separation, etc., etc. So the moving metaphor here is you have to build a house, learn to live in the house, and take care of the people in that house with you. So um, this is an accommodation to Don.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of starting a lecture and talking, I want to ask 7 questions. 7 for me is kind of like a biblical kind of reference. 7 is a sign of infinity, right, Don?
Yeah.
Okay. So 7 related questions to think about. What is sympathy, and what does it have to do with intimacy or establishing aesthetic intimacy? Now, aesthetic intimacy is very important because that's what we start with. It informs our choices. When we find somebody we like, we say, I like that person. And that starts with aesthetics. I like the way they look, I like the way they speak, but basically it starts with sympathy. You can identify with that person has meaning for you. And so it informs your sense of value. And that's what intimacy is about. Intimacy is about establishing value of yourself and of the other person and establishing those intimate spaces. So, series of questions. Is intimacy possible without language? And how does that relate to loss and recovery from loss? Language is about communication. That's obvious. But we deconstruct communication in terms of the 4Ds. The 4Ds in communication. Of the 4Ds in communication, only 3 are actively looked at when we're trying to manage anger. And that has to do with the diatribe, discussion, and dialogue. Those are the 3Ds. The 4th D, of course, is discourse, which is what you experience when you go to a lecture. You sit respectfully, listen to the person talk to you, and lecturing to you. So, of the 4Ds, the ones that are important in managing anger are diatribe, uh, discussion, and dialogue. Now, what we have experienced in America recently is a lot of diatribe. The political arena is replete with people invectives. The last one that I heard was Trump was offering a Second Amendment solution to Hillary Clinton.
Get rid of Hillary.
And there's the implicit threat of violence in that. Looking at Arizona, if you're a political junkie, and I am, it was the Arizona or is the Nevada Senate candidate who lost her bid when she was talking about Second Amendment solution. So it's in the culture. When people reference Second Amendment solution, we know what they're talking about. So in what part of the communication cycle, this is the 5th question is, in what part of the communication cycle, diatribe, discussion, dialogue, in what part of the communication cycle is it possible to arrive at a solution to a problem? Now, sometimes you may arrive at a solution, but sometimes you don't always arrive at a solution through a discussion dialogue. Sometimes you arrive at accommodation. An accommodation is something short of a solution. We will agree to disagree. I will treat you with respect. I would show you respect in the political arena. So that's an accommodation. So the 6th question is free will and choice. Everybody talks about free will. Not free willy, but free will. So choice is very important. Choice is everything. Everything we do in life is about choice. Everything we do in life is about choice. Even when we decide not to commit a crime, when we decide not to do something that's outrageous, it is about a choice. We make a conscious decision that it is not worth it. Now, the best choice is rational choice, and that is at the top level of in terms of one's conscious development, and that has to do with you do the right things for the right reasons, and as you were informed by God or whatever your ethical belief systems might be. So, free will and choice are intrinsically connected, and sometimes we try to separate them out, but we can't. And God gave us freedom. Freedom subserve choice. Even the choice to say God doesn't exist is a freedom that we have because we have choice. It may be uninformed choice, but it's a choice. So, in terms of looking at how does one arrive at a process of understanding how to communicate and to talk with each other and to take care of each other and to understand the consequences of communication, we talk about dialectics. Dialectics is a fancy term, but it's not that big a deal. Dialectics simply means dialogue. And in our structure, we talk of dialogue as being important in terms of coming up with solutions and accommodations to real problems. And so dialectics, the reason I have slide 7 here, question 7, is to have people understand that in terms of looking at the 4 elements of dialectical understanding of where you are, one is you start off with a general principle, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, but the 4th one that I want to bring up is very important in terms of how you manage anger and the consequences of that, and that's called object use. Now, anybody who's had good, vigorous sex know what object use is about. True. Because it is through intimacy. It is through intimacy that you allow that person to begin to explore who they are and to get a sense of their power, their ability to control their power. It's very important. And so in object use, you're able to, in an intimate setting, you're able to allow that person to explore their sexuality and to understand who they are and to consolidate their identity in a very safe way. Now, when I was at UCLA, we talk about it, object use in terms of the perversions, and we came to the idea that, there's nothing really perverted between people who are intimate, as long as they don't keep it private and intimate. I can tickle you with a feather all day long. How damaging that is, but it's like, that's my idea of fun. Good. But you wouldn't go and tell everybody that I like to tickle you with a feather. It's personal. It's part of our intimate stream. Oh man, he just tickles me with a feather all day long. So that becomes a very important part of that process. So speech deconstructed. Speech is very, very much important. And as we said, speech is everything. Speech is how you establish intimate spaces. This is how you establish intimate spaces. This is how you come up with solutions to problems. Now, I tend to look at TV and listen to a lot of music. So in terms of preventing this talk, I talk about, there's a commercial I absolutely love. It's that Geico commercial featuring the talking parrot, where the pirates are attacking, he's going to attack the captain of the ship, and the parrot is sitting on his shoulder and he's talking smack. Kill him, and then he started talking with the crew. They're dirty. And that's an example of edit speech. It is unprocessed speech that doesn't make any sense. Buddy wants a cracker. Buddy wants a cracker. Well, that's a smart parrot. It's smarter than you are, man. Yeah. No, it's not. It's edit speech. It's meaningless garbage. That's edit speech. And you said Trump? Yeah, maybe. That's edit speech. Edit speech is unprocessed raw speech. It is unprocessed. It has no cultural references. And a lot of times, the reason that Trump is so alienating to a lot of people is that he engaged in this edit kind of discursive nominalization constantly, which makes no sense. Now, when speech begins to have cultural representation, for example, I think of, I may be dating myself, but I love this song. John Denver's Annie song. John Denver, Annie song, beautiful song. The guy talks about love of seasons, and he's just poetic, and he talks about, I want to die in your arms. Yeah. And he just transforms you. I mean, it's just beautiful, beautiful poetry. And so that's an example of speech that goes from etic speech to idealistic speech, which has to have cultural imputations, and it gives you it starts intimacy. You begin to understand what intimacy is about, and you can picture, I love you so much, I want to die in your arms. And then Gordon Lightfoot, beautiful song. If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts would tell about an old time movie, about a song from a wishing well. He's talking about movies. If you read the part that I love so much, the hero would be me. That's eidetic speech. It has to do with visual memory that you can mark on. I am the hero of my piece. I will act in a grand fashion. So speech helps you to create intimate spaces, which helps to facilitate recovery from loss. Now, visual memory, intimacy and recovery from loss requires visual memory, which is dual. There's a here and a then, and you can modify it and you can edit the memories that you're experiencing in. You've had memories of having great, wonderful sex with your partner, and you can then compare him to everybody else, her to everybody else, and you can mix and match.
Yeah, what?
Oh, I like this part of that. I like this part of that, and oh man, I'm looking for that part of this. And so you begin to create visual memories where you can come up with solutions to your problems. Now, eidealistic speech has to where you begin to apply cultural meaning to your choices. And again, everything is about choice. Everything is about choice. Choice facilitates action, being and becoming. And sympathy, being able to identify with somebody, is very important. So sympathy and intimacy are very much correlated. Sympathy starts giving you a sense of moral sentiment. And sympathy is the start of moral sentiment. Sympathy or empathy is sharing the feelings of another, understanding the experiences and emotions of another, both good and bad. And from that you get compassion, sorrow, hope, intimacy, and authentic speech. What Donald Trump has been engaging is very inauthentic speech because it doesn't lead to solutions. It just leads to more problems. And so, Jean Paul Sartre, when I was at Northwestern, I wanted to know, what did Jean Paul mean by authentic and inauthentic speech? What do you mean by bad faith? Well, in our program, I realized that when you talk about authentic speech, is about coming up with solutions to problems, whereas inauthentic speech does not lead to solutions. We talk about building a wall between us and Mexico. Huh? All Mexicans are rapists. Huh? Where do you go with that? Hillary killed the people in Benghazi. Huh? Where do you go with it after that?
There's no solution.
There's no solution. It's inauthentic speech. It just creates. It just creates. It's like an etic speech. It's like that parrot.
Yeah.
Polly wants a cracker. Polly wants a cracker.
Donald Trump will be in office soon.
You leave and if he is, well, God help us. I'm going to Canada, Halifax. So sympathy becomes very important. When you're sympathetic to other people, you're sympathetic, and you allow other people to take on what they need to take on. You understand that. In my own personal experiences, the one thing that I've experienced in my own personal life is that I don't find people who are sympathetic enough would allow me the space to grow old and grow old gracefully, and they're kind to me. Mm-hmm. So I cannot grow old in Southern California. There are too many people here that I really don't care for, because as a human being, I am not allowed to grow old. Mm-hmm. That's why that grow gracefully. That's why I keep looking like I'm 40. Because I can't afford to grow old in this culture because it's so bad here. So intimacy again facilitates dialogue and solutions to problems. So again, the dialectical process is very important. And don't let these words get you going. I mean, this is Hegel stuff, but it's wonderful stuff if you understand it. This slide, looking at the dialectic process, which is about dialogue. You start with a thesis, which is a statement of general principle. Love is a wonderful thing. Antithesis. It's not always wonderful when people are using and abusing me. That's the antithesis. So it becomes to be modified. Synthesis is, sometimes when people tell you they love you, it's not always real. It's inauthentic. Mm-hmm. In this protocol, we talk about object use and creative destruction. Object use, Winnicott, creative destruction, Hegel. Anytime you have a dialectical process, there's always byproduct. There's always something amiss. there's always some use going on. I talk about sex, and people having sex, and it's just object use. Oh, it's good stuff. Uh, so object use within an intimate relation is not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Object use outside of an intimate relation where it's just usury and somebody's abusing you, it's awful. It's hideous. And so basically, the hallmark of intimacy is when two people have been intimate, they don't talk about what they have done in the past. They don't talk about what they meant to each other. They come up with the idea that the relationship is at an end. But for me to preserve the memories of an intimate space that I had with you, I will not talk about what we did in private. It's none of your business. It is none of your business. So alienation is usually a byproduct of what I call discursive nominalization. Discursive nominalization is exploring your house and naming things but not giving it cultural meaning or significance. So a lot of times discursive nominalization informs choice by what we term confirmational bias. Confirmational bias is a very, very important construct because a lot of times when we make choices about going here, there, and everywhere, it's usually informed by choices that is usually based on confirmational bias. We see and I experience this quite a bit. Somebody looks at me and says, "This is a big black guy, man. You gotta be comfortable." So when it's good, they say, "What do you play football?" The first time I bought a Mercedes Benz when I was 29, and I was waiting for them to deliver my car, and everybody was looking at a big black guy. They say, "Oh man, he's a baller. Who do you play for, man?" No, I play for anybody. So I'm a doctor. Huh? Confirmational bias. Well, I can understand you being a football player, but a doctor? Really? Confirmational bias. And we experience that constantly. People make certain suppositions about us based on our age or race or sex, our gender or sexual orientation. It's discursive normalization. They name things and they devalue you based on the choices that they make, whether they're allowing you to have that intimacy. Now, intimacy is about value, and alienation is the lack of value that people apply to you because of their own discursive normalization. Now, this is the important point here, is that human beings are very destructive to each other. And one of the reasons that I absolutely, absolutely love David Hume, who is one of those guys I'm going to write about next year and when I go to Scotland and talk about him, because I think he's just fabulous. Didn't understand much about David Hume until I kept working on this project. Now, David Hume was an atheist. I'm not an atheist, but I love David Hume because he was an empiricist and he's a skeptic. Now, the only anecdote to discursive normalization where your choice is based on a lot of confirmational bias and prejudice is to be skeptical about people's determination of who you are, and what your values are. I absolutely love David Hume because he was a guy who, at one point in his life was described as a stoic. But then he overcame that because he was such a bon vivant. He was a guy who was full of life. And so he ended up at that place of being a skeptic in terms of Hegelian's progression. He went from a stoic to a skeptic. He never got to Hegel's 6th and 7th stage of conscious development, which is the unhappy consciousness, 6th, and the 7th, which is a rational consciousness, where choice is made on a rational basis. Mm-hmm. Throughout all of our decisions we make as human beings, everything is based on choice. We can choose to love each other or we can choose not to love each other. We can choose to invest in each other, we can choose not to invest in each other. It is God's gift to us, freedom. We have choices to make. And of course, the best choice is rational choice based on our understanding of what God would want us to do. David Hume never got there. David Hume stayed being a skeptic, but that's wonderful because what he did was he said, something, he for me defines which I call the depressive position, which is position 2 in our protocol, Austin Brief protocols, which says, you may have a lot of doubts about this person or that person, but you know something? It's your issue. It's not their issue. You have to be skeptical about any kind of bias you may have. And the problem with discursive nominalization, naming things, going through a room and naming things, is you're like that parrot. You're this because you're that. You're this, you're that. And you're applying value to people. And a lot of times that value is very alienated because you don't see yourself in that picture. I mean, how many times have you sat with somebody and they're describing or talking to you, you don't recognize yourself? It's happened to me all the time. And I don't get upset about it anymore. I simply look at the person and say, you have a good day. And move on. Because it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of times when they're doing that is because they're engaging in object use. They're devaluing you. They're doing things that are destructive to you. They're negating you. And this is the last point I want to make in this part of this process here. Object use, creative destruction. You have to learn how to manage that. On a micro level, children can be very destructive to parents. Parents can be very destructive to kids. And you have to be aware of the destructive impact you have and the fact that when you act in certain ways, you can be alienating. You can devalue human beings unconsciously. And so intimacy is you have to work at it. I work at it very assiduously a lot because it makes my job easier. It's easier for me to get information, to do my job when I have an intimate relationship with someone. An intimate relationship has a certain anatomical frame that is very interesting. It's not linear. It's very disjointed. You talk about a lot of things. I always give the example of the guy going into Burger King and ordering a hamburger. I like that one because he walks into this Burger King joint and he likes this girl behind the counter. And he says, oh, Lord, that's nice. He goes up and says, hey, can I have, I don't know what I'm going to have. What would you recommend me eating tonight? And the girl said, we just have hamburgers. Is the menu, please choose. Oh, Lord, I don't know what I'm going to do here. What would you order if you were me? Sir, I'm a vegetarian. Okay, well, let me have the cheeseburger. Gosh, what should I drink? Oh, Lord, that lemonade looks just like the color of your eyes. And so at that point, the girl is about to barf. And so the poor guy is putting out all of this wonderful, intimate stuff, and she's being cut down every minute of it. And so he walks away from the encounter saying, boy, she doesn't like me. He feels the value. There's a sense there's loss of value. And so that's a very important thing, establishing those intimate spaces. People are constantly looking for intimacy with each other because that's how we resolve our losses. That's how we resolve our grief. It's creating an intimate space with another person. And a lot of times people are very destructive in that process because they don't value us and we feel that we're not valued. I don't know how many times we've been in situations where people use you as an object and have no concern for your feelings. And at the end of the day, you love them, but you realize that you've been used. And it's one of the most hurtful feelings you can have. Yeah. It's the most hurtful feeling you can have when somebody devalues you. You feel nothing. But yet object use is a very, very important process. It happens all of the time. The key there is to try to create an intimate space with another human being where object use is permitted. Object use, if it's within the space of an intimate relationship, could give you all of the power and creative power that's associated with object use. You become a better lover, you become a better friend, you become a better parent. If you're able to explore those emotions and then come out of the other end of it, a better, more transformed human beings. One of the things that I've been exploring in my readings about is the German Romantic period, where they look at movies, and movies talk about a lot of different things, but a lot of violent stuff. And I love to compare, for example, Macbeth, which is a very, Shakespeare wrote Macbeth, and it's kind of highbrow stuff. And then you look at something like was produced by Tupac Shakur, which is When We Ride. And to me, people always say, but one is Shakespearean and the other one is Tupac. I said, well, in my world, Tupac is Shakespearean. I experience him like that. He touches an intimate space that I need in order to explore, in order to understand my world. I grew up as a young black kid in urban America, in Brooklyn. And the experiences that I have, my friends dying at a young age, rap music, that came from that is organic to my history and my memory. So I also appreciate Macbeth. I love the beautiful language of a Shakespearean play. But I also understand the music and the vibrancy of when we write and what he was talking about, the sense of alienation, the sense of use, the sense of destruction, and that's what romanticism is. It gives you a chance to explore those aspects of your life that you can't otherwise explore in any other way. And that's object use too, isn't it? But it creates an intimate space where you can develop from there and understand something about yourself, and helps with your consolidating your own identity. Now, just because I listen to Tupac and I love rap music, it doesn't mean I want to go shoot up the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, just the opposite. I want to create those spaces where little kids can feel whole and intimate and part of a growing, larger, loving family. And so our next lecture is going to talk about how do you get there, and we'll be talking about transcendency and the importance of maintaining routines and habits in that space. And so that's where we're going to next. So I think it was the last slide, and intimacy. Oh, I think this is probably the last slide here. Let me go back here. Let's go back to the play. So I think the last slide is an intimacy and object use. Discursive nominalization involves a confirmational bias. A lot of times when we are biased, it informs our choices that we make. So we engage in a lot of negativism and nihilism. Power onto that will be very destructive. But this is the important point. All of this serves as an important developmental function in identity formation and integration and consolidation. It helps us to define who we are. So the most important thing is that it's not that you're not going to have object use, but it's a question in what context it's going to occur. And if it's occurring within an intimate space, you don't end up with a lot of the destructive parts of it that is always there. So again, identity formation integration helps us to manage anxiety. We talk about two types of anxiety: prosecutorial anxiety and depressive anxiety. Again, object use within an intimate relation mitigates against the alienation and the sense of loss of value that a lot of us experience in discursive normalization, as defined by Idealistic Speech. Paddy wants a cracker. Paddy wants a cracker. Fuck you. Did I curse?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Where there is no real intimacy is very important. So Idealistic Speech is the beginning of intimacy as defined by your culture. Culture is very important because it gives you those symbolisms to tie into. And of course, the highest form of speech which helps us to resolve all of the sense of alienation, loss of grief we have, is Idealistic Speech, which is speech that's attached to visualizable memory, which can be edited and modified and changed around and added and subtracted to. And we talk about an example of object use. We talk about it as being influenced by eidetic speech, where you have wild and crazy and wonderful sex, where object use is par excellence. Here, there's no real loss of value. There's no alienation. It's just good stuff. And so there's no object use which is not pro-social and helps you to consolidate your identity, to get a good sense of your own intimacy, your own vitality, your own energy. And in this sense, all of the power that comes with discursive normalization and power unto death and a consolidation of your identity is helpful. But the key there is creating an intimate space which this can occur. That's what families do. Families create intimate spaces where kids can be destructive and yet survive the process
And grow.
and grow. A lot of times when you have kids in a space which is not intimate, it's very destructive, it's very alienating. And a lot of our kids grow up in that space which is not intimate. It's unforgiving. I think President Obama talks about his experience as a young man growing up using marijuana. He says he lived in an environment that was forgiving. That's why he was able to become president of the United States. In certain neighborhoods, you use marijuana, you get a criminal record, and your entire future is
Gone.
gone. And so, because it was not an intimate space, different communities have different experiences. And so, in black communities, there are no intimate spaces. Black kids get chewed up very badly because this system is very unforgiving. Today, we had an interesting report come up from the DOJ, Department of Justice, looking at Baltimore and their multi-decade history of violating the civil rights of black folks in that city, Baltimore, and it was just amazing report. But I think what I'm hopeful when I saw the report this morning is that I was hopeful because you had the police chief there, the mayor, and of course Deputy Attorney General Gupta, who was presenting the case and solutions to this problem. Again, the idea of creating an intimate spaces where people's losses can be managed. And that's very important. A safe space. So language is everything. It subserves intimacy, and it's a very important part of the process. So that's what I got. What do you guys have? Any concerns? Any observations?
I was going to ask you, when we were talking about language and communication, how it relates to what's happening right now as far as Donald Trump is concerned, and what kind of speech is he having?
Well, we talked last lecture. We talked about position 1 and position 2, management of loss. And again, this is all from our loss and grief diagram. And position 1 is envy, schizoid, paranoid position. And it's power unto death. It's very destructive speech. And a lot of it doesn't observe reality testing. One of the crazy, wonderful things about Donald Trump is that this man is fact-free in his discussions. I mean, he constantly lies.
Yeah, they say he's the.
He constantly he makes up stories.
He makes up stories.
And they say what he gets away with it. That's because in position 1, reality testing is not important.
So you can say anything.
You can say anything you want. It's discursive normalization. It's just naming things. You're just making whatever things you want. But the problem with that, this nihilism, is that it can be very destructive because it can be turned against you also, where people can begin making up stories. And if you do begin doing that, you've got nothing to work on. And so one of the reasons that I looked at Jean-Paul Sartre's stuff, and he talks about authenticity and inauthenticity. This man's speech is inauthentic because it doesn't lead to solutions and accommodations. What it leads to is a lot of anger and more loss. It's alienating. It's an alienating way to discuss things. It's not very helpful. And so the important part of understanding how do you recover from loss is to understand that you have to get to a depressive position. And one of the things that we pointed out in our last lecture is that to get to position 2, which is the depressed position, you have to observe reality testing. It has to be real. And the most important part of that lecture that I really didn't stress, but in going back and reviewing it, at position 2, which is the depressed position. This is Melanie Klein stuff, by the way, and I've modified it. The most important thing to that is intimacy. The recognition that intimacy is very important, and intimacy is a function of language.
But
not saying certain things.
If the communication is dishonest, there's no point to the communication. It's a waste of time.
Well, that's exactly what happens. People stop talking. People stop talking. So that's why I say it's alienating. It is inauthentic.
You don't want to be bothered.
Because it doesn't. It is diatribal. It's a diatribe. It's about your loss. So one of the big problems in this country is that there's an ethnic divide here, and people have a real sense of loss of power. President Obama represented a sea change in American history. He was the first non-white male president that we ever had, and to a lot of people that was very disorienting and represent lots of loss. And so they were processing that loss at the envy, schizoid, paranoid position. So they did not want to give this man any kind of agency, respect, or anything else. So they made up all sorts of stuff. And the wonderful thing about American history is that you got the chief birther. He's now the nominee of the Republican Party. I mean, I listen to this stuff, and when I go home at night, I just sit in my bed and I laugh. I said, God, you got a sense of humor, man. You have got a sense of humor, because this is some funny stuff. That the number one birther is now the nominee of the Republican Party, the party of Lincoln. That is funny stuff.
It's not funny when people think about Trump actually becoming president. It's scary.
It is scary.
It is scary to think that.
Well, he's going to get along with Putin. Vladimir Putin.
You don't meet a lot of Trump supporters in person.
No, you should have seen Disneyland.
It depends on where you go. Yeah, it depends on where you go. Orange County, you see a lot of that.
Orange. Yeah, I saw something that said, what is it? Hillary for jail.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm on the way to work.
Oh, there are lots of them out there.
They have a little bridge.
There are lots of them out there.
Jail.
Yeah.
That's scary.
That's where they had that
not
Ku
to
Klux
play the
Klan,
race card. They're mostly
rally.
white.
Really?
In
yeah.
Santa Ana.
I have not seen any Trump supporter who's colored. I mostly seen them white.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because every colored person I ask, they don't like Trump at all. They always have something negative to say about him. Always.
I mean, if like David Duke is gung ho about you, you have to kind of think about.
He's a racist.
You have to kind of realign
Trump
your
is a
thoughts. Like,
racist.
okay, like I agree with everything saying. Like, ex-Klansman is.
Ex-Klansman
He's like, yeah.
is
language and symbolism is very important. And one of the things that happened a week, 2 weeks ago, was Donald Trump sent Donald Trump Jr. to Philadelphia, Mississippi, as pointed out by Rachel Maddow on our show. Great journalist, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, why did Donald Trump send his son to Philadelphia, Mississippi? Philadelphia, Mississippi is only famous for one thing. That's where they lynch civil rights era workers. And Ronald Reagan did it when he was running for president in 1980. It was symbolism. It was a symbol to the white, disaffected group that we're going to create that safe space for you. So all of these guys in their white robes and their Nazi uniforms, Donald Trump is their guy.
Yes.
Because he says things that gives them kind of cover for their anger and their resentment.
He voices everything nasty that's in their mind when he's calling black people niggers and he's calling Mexican beaners.
Well,
they say all these things.
Well, I don't think Donald,
that's not politically correct.
Donald has to disagree with you. Donald Trump is from New York City.
He is a racist.
No, but he would. You said he said nigger. I never heard Donald. I don't think Donald.
He's never going to say it. Not him.
No, but
you
the
said
people
at his rallies.
Well, the people at his rallies might say nigger.
The people at his rallies
but Donald
say
Trump
it.
would never say it because he wouldn't be able to go. He wouldn't be able to show up at the Hamptons.
And yet he can pick on the Mexicans and call them all sorts of things.
Well, yeah.
He may not say the words himself, but his insinuations and the fact that he is giving voice to these people who are racist, who say Obama go home and go back to Africa and is Hitler and all these things and build a wall and no Muslims, ban Muslims. He just keeps coming
all
up.
Muslims are terrorists. He's
He
implying, that everything other than
doesn't
white is dangerous.
He doesn't say it outright, but those people get that undercurrent message.
Well, you heard about the Representative King from he's from Iowa, the 6th congressional district from Iowa. He said that he wanted to curb European heritage, and no, he said that in this country, he says that this is a white culture, and anything of value came from white folks.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Representative King stated. during or around the time of the GOP convention. And the truth of the matter is, this is a country that's built by everybody. I mean, you had Chinese, you had various Japanese, you had everybody contributing to this culture. This is a great country, a great culture. So, but what I'm saying to you is that when you make statements like this, it's very inauthentic in the sense that it does not lead to solutions. When you make a statement like, all whatever, or Mexicans are this, or he's a thug.
He likes to generalize.
Well,
He just
when he
generalizes.
talks
Yes.
about national security and then has no plan, then that's
He doesn't, but that's what he was talking about. The kind of speech that Donald Trump does. Ethic,
Says a whole bunch of nothing.
Ethic is just raw,
Just-
unprocessed speech.
just repetitive,
Let's think of a parrot.
repetitive, just saying the same thing over and over
wants a
with
cracker.
no significance. It's like
Who
somebody.
wants a cracker?
It's like people who just talk for no reason.
How many crackers do you
And
want?
there's no
I don't know.
message.
Who wants a
They
cracker?
just like to talk to hear
yeah,
themselves
it's
talk.
just venting. That's what it sounds like. He's just
He's just venting. He doesn't give a speech. He just talks and
But that's
talks
how he
and talks.
incites them,
With
because
no-
everybody's angry and he just wants to incite that anger, and they're like, yeah, we're pissed too, but they're not really,
They
they
don't know
aren't
why.
trying to find a solution. They just want to
There's
be
no
all angry
solution.
together.
I don't get what they're so angry about anyways. They're not the ones who face oppression.
like, look at these
Like,
gas
most of
prices.
these people, they're mostly coward.
So we go
Yeah,
to
they don't
that.
want to lose,
We
that's
go.
the thing, they don't
We
want
go
to
to
lose
the.
that
We go
power.
to question 4. Of the 4 Ds, which is important in the management of loss? So we talk about the 4 Ds. We talk about diatribe, discussion, dialogue, and discourse. Discourse is we don't talk about that in terms of anger management.
Okay.
So in terms of anger management communication solutions, we talk about diatribe. Diatribe is a statement of loss. And then if you talk to another person, all they're coming to you is with a statement of loss. I think you're this, I think you're that. You realize that
negativity.
you realize in the communication cycle they're stuck within that diatribal exchange with you.
You're not able to go
And so
further.
you have to try to go to, and you can't come up with a solution during a diatribe. Not even an accommodation. You have to try to transition that conversation, that communication from diatribe to a discussion. A discussion is simply a statement of your losses. Well, I understand what you're saying, man, but I've experienced the same things too. I know you're not happy right now, but I'm not happy either. I'm not happy because of these reasons. I am struggling too. I don't have this, I don't have that. That's a discussion. It's simply an enumeration or listing of your own concerns, your own losses, and showing what you're concerned about. But you're not making statements that are attacking anybody else. You're simply enumerating your own sense of loss. Well, I wish this would happen to me too. Then you go from diatribe to discussion to the final one, which is what in the communication cycle? A dialogue. Now, a dialogue doesn't mean you come to a solution, always. A dialogue, sometimes you don't come to a solution. Sometimes a dialogue, we're having a real exchange with somebody, they say, you did this to me, you're disrespectful to me. I said, look, man, if I was disrespectful, I'm sorry. But you got to understand, I was running late for my work. I came in and I saw this was happening, and I didn't know I was hurting your feelings doing this, and I got to apologize. I'm sorry. And when I'm running late, how would you want me to handle this situation? Well, you got to at least talk to me and let me know where you're coming from, that's reasonable. So all of a sudden you go from a diatribe to a discussion to now a dialogue, where you say, okay, so you want me to say what I need to say to you in order to spare your feelings, and that'll work for you? Yeah, just come and tell me what you want me to do. That'll work. We could do that. But sometimes the boys look, I don't want to talk to you right now because I'm very angry with you. I say, fine. Is there anything else I can get you? I'm going to the coffee. Can I get you some coffee? Can I get you some water? No, I don't want any water, friend. I want anything from you. So you come to an accommodation, which is, I'm going to try to be polite to you. Implicit in that statement of, we haven't come up with a solution, but there can be an accommodation. I am not going to keep attacking you. I'm going to try to understand your point of view, and I will try to help you when I can help you. And so that becomes part of that process. So, of the 4 Ds in terms of managing anger, the most important one is a dialogue, and a dialogue is about being intimate. You want some water? Can I get you this? That's intimate. That's intimate space. And so people don't understand this. Being able to talk to kids and talk about, what are you doing now? For example, I had a little kid come into my office, and the first thing I said to him was, man, look at your haircut. That's gorgeous. You're a gorgeous, handsome kid. You know, you say, where do you get that gray shoe from, man? I can't find a gray shoe. I can't find his black shoes. But that is cute. Who picked that out? Well, my mom picked it out for me. Really, man, she did a great job. And all of a sudden, this kid, who was, he's focused on his lip, looking at me and saying, hey, this guy is intimate. We're having an intimate conversation. And he's relaxed, and we're in that space. We have to get information from him to help him. A lot of people don't understand that in terms of the holding environment because it's never been modeled for them. Everything is linear. Come, go, up, down, no, yes, but, blah. And that is not a very nice space to be because, the one thing that when we talk about discursive normalization, it's where you light up your brain. And, I saw a kid in my office today and he was very depressed. And one of the things that the mom told me, he was anxious about going back to school. And he came into my office, and we always exchanging things. He's a little white kid. We always think, man, you ghetto fabulous. He likes to dress, and he likes the color and the coloration of the black subculture, And so he's always, you ghetto fabulous, man. I like that. Where do you get it from? You have this little smack one. But he came in and he was kind of sad, and I says, what's up? He said, I'm anxious, I'm worried about going back to school. And she was quiet. The mom said, he's been anxious. And he said, I want some more of this medication, Doc. And so I looked at him, and one of the first things that I realized is he wasn't talking a lot. And so basically his brain was beginning to shut down. It was not beginning to light up. So part of discursive normalization is that your brain is lit up. It's like exploring a house. For example, if you're new to a house, you can decide that I'm just going to stay in the basement and turn off the rest of the house. I'm just going to stay in the basement. But you don't know what is possible in the house because you're not exploring the house. Discursive normalization is getting out there and running all over the places. What is this? This is a bedroom. What do I do in a bedroom? You sleep. What else can I do in a bedroom? None of your business. You got to grow up. What if this is a kitchen? Kitchen. We can eat in here. Yeah, I love it. And they're running through the house. They're afraid of different things. But basically, the person is exploring their house and beginning to see the connection. And so, well, okay, I can go up the stairs here, and there's lots of the bedroom are upstairs. Wow, I like that. So the kitchen's downstairs, the bedroom are upstairs. Wow, that's nice. And so they're exploring their house, and they say, well, why can't I have a kitchen up here? Well, we think about it, okay? And so basically what's happening is they're exploring their house, their brain is lit up. They're seeing the possibilities, they're naming things. It may not mean anything to the culture. But the culture tells you, well, it's okay to have the kitchen downstairs. Maybe you could take a little stuff upstairs to when you're going to eat. But we want you to eat downstairs. And so the culture begins to tell you, how do we create this place to be an intimate space where everybody can live? So there are rules to the road. And so basically, as the person running through the house, their family, the people they're running to, create an idea of what those spaces can look like when it's intimate. And so you go from epic speech to, no, this is a bedroom, and this is a study, this is a that. And you begin to name it, and you begin to have cultural imputation on what it means. Oh, okay, bedroom, sleep, sex. Okay, kitchen, food, sex. But you know what I'm getting at. And so you begin to visualize these spaces. She's having memories of something, man. I don't know what it is. Oh Lord, Francisco.
No.
No, nothing in the kitchen.
No. I'll just state this out. I've never had sexual intercourse. So.
In the kitchen?
No, never. I said never. So yeah, I don't have memories of that. I just have memories of what people tell me. So.
Lord,
you're a virgin?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't mind it. I love it,
Well,
actually.
that's good.
I'm a virgin too.
I'm a virgin someplace.
Anyway.
Does born again count?
Yeah, well, born again does count. You can become a born again virgin.
Can you?
Absolutely. Yes.
You're born again?
It's
I
possible.
know there's a surgery.
We're going from bad to worse.
This is really interesting speech here.
Very intimate speech.
This is very
Yes.
interesting.
But again, we have to create these spaces. I mean, the most important thing you have to keep in mind is this: is that as human beings, we come into the world where we are presented in a holding environment, and that holding environment is defined by speech and language, and we have to try to figure out how we internalize that holding environment in ourselves. And so part of the way we repair ourselves is being able to engage in intimate conversation with other people, where we feel valued and have meaning. And if you don't have that, then sometimes you feel a loss of energy, vitality, meaning. And so it's very important that you create that space for people where they feel
And
loved and part of something that's greater than themselves, and it's a very important part of that process.
and I've had that experience where that space was someone helped me provide an intimate space and helped me finish and make a safe place for me, a beautiful place for me, you know. And I was just thinking about that. Having a intimate area is very important in your peace of mind and how you feel about yourself.
You definitely need to be able to
You
get
know,
away.
And that was done for me
Someone
in my
who can
home,
attack you.
where now I feel comfortable. Now I feel happy.
Not my
No.
fault.
No, in my home, I'm saying. I know what I'm saying.
Hannah's still there.
No, but
so-
but no, but
I know what I'm
but
saying.
what I'm saying, what we're saying is that you define that space
Right.
for yourself, and that space is populated with people,
Mm-hmm.
relationships, expectations,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times we get into situations where the expectations are not met.
Right.
You know, and that
When
is
you
that
expect things
that,
from people
that
and-
is and that
and
creates
you're
alienation
disillusioned.
because you expect certain things and you don't get it, and what you experience, you experience
Alienated.
alienation.
Right. They shut you out.
That's alienation. It's just inauthentic, and a lot of times, people engage against it, discursive normalization. I don't know. People are always saying, for example, I experienced something 2 weeks ago in my own professional life. I think I'm a big shot child psychiatrist, and I thought I was all that in the bag of chips, man. I just thought I was great, Here I am working on all this wonderful project. I've been reading about this stuff since I was 17. I know this stuff back and forth. A little swagger there. I went to work and they took my computer away from me. They just took it and they gave it to a new guy, the new flavor on the block. And I said,
It sucks.
but it's about value. It's about somebody not deciding you're that valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And so, subsequent to that, I had to lay down the law. I said, listen, because when people begin to take away your agency, they begin to extend certain things to you. They begin to extend other disrespectful aspects to your life. And I had to read them. Right? I
If
said,
you
listen,
accept something,
I said, look, guys. I says, don't ever do this again. It was not even related to the computer. And the computer thing was solved. What they were doing other things, meaning that they were trying to engage in kind of object use because they felt stress.
bringing death to you.
And they felt stressed because the entire system was kind of chaotic and falling around, and I was the point of least resistance. They could well, but we can take it away from him because we can. We don't want to take it away from Paul, Mary, and Jane because they may be upset and they have more
But it
standing.
doesn't matter how you feel.
But why are you an easy target?
Well, that's a long story.
Because he's tall, he's
Because
big,
because
he's
I'm because I'm
black,
because I'm tall,
Educated.
handsome, black, and a threat.
Well,
and a threat.
that's I think by default you're a threat, but I think that they know because you know that how you look to the outside world, you refrain from being that person. And I feel like people take
I know you
advantage
try
of
to
that.
minimize yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
try to minimize yourself.
That's my
and That's why
problem.
you're so
What is
numerous.
problem? What's wrong with that?
That's my problem. Like, so I live in a household. I have 3 siblings. So I have a brother and I have a sister, and I'm the youngest. So my brother and sister, my parents don't ask them to do anything because they know that they'll get crazy. but they'll ask me. I'm like the last resort. It doesn't matter if I wake up at 6 in the morning to go to work, or come home at 5:30, or anything like that. They'll just put everything on my shoulders.
Because you're the least resistant.
Yeah,
Half
because
the least resistance. We know we can get to her.
yeah, even if I try to put up a fight, still don't take me seriously. It's just the guilt. They'll put guilt on me. They'll manipulate me. They'll make me feel bad for even feeling like they're going to that extent. I get put in a position where I'm supposed to feel bad for even thinking it.
Yeah.
So
Object use.
yeah.
In terms of their identity, they want to be able to use you and not have you talk back to them.
Yeah.
They want to use you in a very novel way.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is that if they were treating you special and had you feeling that special, then you wouldn't feel so
You
alienated.
wouldn't mind.
You wouldn't
Yeah.
feel
That's
you wouldn't feel so
If they gave
devalued.
you love or
Yeah.
support.
But see, that's the thing though, because I wonder sometimes, I'm like, why do I get taken advantage of? Why don't I get any special privileges? Why doesn't anybody give me any lenience that I have a busy schedule, that I feel this way? And I'll get told because we trust you more, because we depend on you more. We know that you're more responsible, but I don't really get rewarded the moment
You don't feel
I can.
intimate. You don't feel an intimate space with them. They're not intimate with you. They don't value you. You don't sense that
Yeah.
they're valuing you.
Yeah.
But they're engaging in what we call discursive normalization. They say, oh yeah, you're valuable to us.
Minimizing you.
You're valuable to us. You're this important to us, but I don't want to spend anything on you. I think you're great, but I got nothing for you. It's like you're dating some guy, and he says, I want to save the world. I want to save the world. Greenpeace, can you give me $25 so I can
I want
put
to
for
make it green
Greenpeace?
again.
But I said, I don't have $25. Really? You're talking to me for months and months about being into world peace, and I actually give me $25. You can't come with $25 for world peace?
Yeah.
That's discursive normalization. It's ethnic speech is nonsense.
It's nonsense.
You got, speech, you have to add cultural choices to that speech, and you have to add value. Again, it's about value and choices.
Right.
Your choices are affected by your sense of value, what that person means to you.
You have to
And
value
sometimes
yourself.
sometimes you have to you're going to be used in a very brutal way by people sometimes. And so for those of us who are somewhat stoic in our orientation, we realize that we have to get to a place of this. I'm changing the topic on you right now. But basically, if you're a military officer, if you're a warrior, you realize that you have to get to a place of ascesis, meaning you have to be willing to sacrifice and to be willing to take people on who are going to damage you, who are going to belittle you. And so one of the things what you end up doing is ascesis, austerity, ascesis. Ascesis is individual sacrifice. I can sacrifice for myself. But this culture wants, when they talk about austerity, they want other people to sacrifice. But the truth of the matter is that ascesis is your personal ability to sacrifice, not be wanting to have all of this good stuff. Always eating fancy food every night, or sleeping in a bed every night, or doing this every night, or expecting this every night, or expecting respect from people all the time. You have to expect some object use from people. So as a military officer, as a soldier, as a warrior, what you end up doing a lot of times is not expecting anything. You take the minimum.
That's you.
You take the minimum. But it's the only way you're gonna get happy. If you get into a space where you expect people to treat you and give you the value that you know that you have, you will be miserable all your life. So the way you get to that space is you have to practice self-sacrifice. So you deny yourself certain things. You sleep on the floor. You do things that people don't expect you to do. You do things that people don't expect you to do. You wash dishes. You do this. You cook. You sacrifice for other people because it makes you great. Ultimately, makes you great because you're of service to other people.
So I would hate to say it's like ego based.
No, it's reality based. It's the idea that in terms of conscious development, you realize that you're going to be used by people. And sometimes, in order to take care of the world, you have to permit that use. If you want to create an intimate space with other people in the world, you want to give things up to people, and you want to show
You
people,
can
give
do
people the
that,
benefit.
but you have to keep something for yourself, because if the only thing you do is sacrifice, if the only thing you do is sacrifice and give things up to people, and you don't keep something for yourself, then where is your survival?
What about you?
Where is your survival? You cannot give everything up and just be totally self-sacrificing. You have to maintain something for yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to be a pig.
You don't want to be what?
I don't want to be a pig. Like, I don't want to be sacrificed.
A lamb? You don't want to be a pig.
No, but you see, there's a
You
double
don't wanna be
entendre there.
sacrificed.
There's a double entendre. I don't want to be a pig. When you say I don't want to be a pig, you say I don't want to eat everything. But you're saying, you're looking at it from. I'm looking at it from the point of view. I am the pig. I can eat everything. But you're saying no. I'm the one that's going to be giving up the ham to the world.
There you go.
Well, the truth of the matter is that sometimes we are treated like ham or cheese or whatever. Bacon.
Bacon.
But that's what I talk about object use. Object use is very common, but sometimes you allow it, you permit it, especially if you know that people need it from you in order to survive and to consolidate their own identity, who they are as people. So that becomes a very important part of the process.
Sometimes you get tired of being the person saving for others.
Right, you just get exhausted.
Yeah, they just suck life out of
It's
you.
like you begin to kind of think about what value they're bringing to your life.
Is there
Are
like
we
an
still streaming?
alternative? Like maybe I don't want to say violence, but
Let me know when you want
Is
to
there an
see it.
alternative?
like is there
What did you say?
What did you say?
like is there an alternative between being like
They're done?
No.
Self-sacrificing. Is there an alternative to being self-sacrificing and just being totally about yourself?
or can
Is
you
there an
go back and
alternative?
forth? You know what I'm saying? Can you go back and forth between the two at some point? Because I know
Because you
that
can't just be
I know
self-sacrificing.
that because doing self-sacrificing is a noble thing to do, noble. But at the same time too, it can be like exhausting. That's exhausting
It
mentally.
leaves you nothing for yourself. And in order to move on and to keep going in life, you have to have something left for yourself. You have to have some value in yourself. If you let people take away all of your value, then that's where we get serious depression. You've taken everything away from me. I have nothing left. And I have nothing left to give. And I'm being treated badly. So I get depressed. I feel sad. I feel lost.
Yeah.
But in order not to be in that position, I have to keep something for myself, and I have to keep my dignity and keep my agency and not be just totally self-sacrificing. You can give some and be reasonable and be a good person, but you have to maintain something for yourself. You have
Otherwise,
to.
you begin to just feel like you're being.
Or else you
I don't know.
feel all of this loss and grief and depressive anxiety.
From all that sacrifice, you do feel that.
Well,
that
I feel
loss and
like
grief.
the word is obligation. Like I know that whatever I'm able to do and whatever I choose to do, yes, guilt has a big part to play in it. Because I don't like feeling guilt. I don't like feeling obligated or nothing. You sometimes feel that people they kind of suspect that
Just doing it because.
yeah, just do it just because, not, without thinking that maybe it's something that you wanted to do out of the kindness of your heart. That's
They
where
take you for granted.
yes, that's where the value comes
Object
in.
use.
Exactly.
And that's very common. You're always going to experience that with your kids, with your family, other people. That's why it's important when you have a mate that they support
That they
you
support
and they
you.
give you a sense of your own value.
Yeah.
That's why it's important that you find somebody in your life that can be intimate with you.
So at some point, does like the people around you, like, will they know? Like, is there something you could say? Because what is the solution to
fix that.
continuously keep?
Giving.
Have you said
Yes.
no? Have you ever said no?
I think you start with the.
You start with the word no.
I mean, because like, it sounds
yeah.
like a case of people pleasing to me.
Well, it's my parents. You
I'm
know,
talking
I
about you.
Oh. Yeah, I feel like because of that, I think that's the reason why I do carry on that people pleasing mode with relationships, with friendships, and with, you know, even anything outside of that, even in the workplace, you know, where it's just kind of like people will talk down to you and kind of take advantage of you in a way where it's like, you know, it's impossible to think this person's taking advantage of me because they're my friend, because I'm in a relationship with them, because they're my family.
Sometimes your friends are your worst
Those are the
enemies.
ones that take advantage of you.
That's
They're the ones who do the object pieces.
That's right.
that's what I'm saying.
Those are the ones.
So I'm just saying, at what point?
Do you say no?
Because if anything, I might end up yelling at them. You don't
Well,
wanna
well,
engage
you,
in
well, you know,
violence.
the key thing is this: is to understand what sympathy is,
Mm-hmm.
what moral obligation is, and what and the importance of intimacy in your life. Because intimacy is something you have to create for yourself also. I mean, the first person you become intimate with is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to forgive yourself. You have to be able to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And so the first person you have to be intimate with is yourself.
Mhm.
You don't do any self-destructive things. You take care of yourself, and you associate with people who can love you and take care of you also.
Yeah.
And so that's why a family becomes important. You know, Martin Luther
It's
King
important.
talks of we talk in the next lecture. We're going to talk about the beloved community and the importance of routines and habits in the beloved community, where people take routines and habits and do things in order to support you.
Mhm.
You know, wash your clothes, cook for you, make sure you have enough to eat. And a lot of times people just don't do that, and they don't understand the importance of that. But you know, you are aware of it. You're aware of the importance of these things, and you create that space for other people in order to feel whole and secure.
Yeah.
So the next lecture we're going to talk about the four S's of moral development and transcendency. And that has to do with how do you maintain routines and habits in a community where everybody's allowed to thrive. Everybody's allowed to thrive. And so basically transcendency is about maintaining safety, security, support, and service within the community. And foundational to that piece is is routines and habits. Routines and habits. Personal routines and habits. Take care of your health. Routines and habits of going to work, making sure you pay your taxes, be a good citizen, be loving to people in your
Following
life,
the rules of life.
following your rules of life. So we talk in terms of our program on essential architecture of laws and brief. We talk about the importance of intimacy and the 5 acts of intimacy. The 5 acts of intimacy we've had in the previous lecture. We talk about storge, taking care of your family, people who look like you and that you love because they look like you and you're attached to them, your kids.
Mhm.
Then intimacy with a lover, a mate, eros.
An object.
Well, some people call it that too.
Good news.
But you see, you gotta look at this one over here. I swear. But the 5 acts of intimacy. You know, human beings don't necessarily deal with love. We deal with acts of intimacy. So storge, eros, philia, where you love of humanity. You want to make sure that people are treated honestly and in a fair way. And then xenia, the caring of intimate spaces, the creating intimate spaces for the strangers in your midst, the aliens, the illegal immigrants, xenia, and then of course agape, which is agape love is using biblical understanding of your obligation to each other, to take care and love each other.
Yes.
To create an intimate space. Intimacy, foundational to intimacy is sympathy. Being able to identify with and being able to put yourself in a space where you take care of other people.
Yeah.
And as a human being, one of the things we learn very quickly, you know, I had this discussion with one of my clients today. You know, he was kind of sad and kind of moping. I said, you know, man, in life, you have to be a warrior, not a warrior. And I said, you know, if you're a warrior, you're like, but if you're a warrior, you're like, So it's something very close. I am not. I am a warrior. I am not a warrior. I'm a warrior, not a warrior. I am a warrior, not a warrior. And so, if I'm a warrior, I have to plan. I have to create intimate spaces for myself and other people. I have to create a home. I have to go live on the beach. I have to get a truck.
That's right.
Yes.
You know, and that creates
Now you get a
intimate spaces.
surfboard.
Well, surfboard, yeah.
No,
but
we're not gonna worry about a surfboard.
I like sipping coffee and I like sipping coffee at Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
And, you know, just sipping wine at Martha's Vineyard. Anyway, so you have to create that space, that intimate space for yourself and others. Okay.
Okay.
So, any other questions,
So
concerns?
that's it.
Becky, you also have to just be okay with yourself to say no. I need time for myself.
Yeah.
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 I don't have enough time for you right now. I don't have enough in me right now for you. Let me
Anything
I
anyone
just
says
need time.
to
Yeah.
filter
And
through
not feel
what you've
guilty.
already thought of
Yeah.
you.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You tell that too. I think that's what's right.
That's like the same.
Right. I mean, basically, you know, everybody knows what their limitations are. I know, you know, like for example, I love Tupac Shakur because a lot of times I feel like a nigger thug. Nobody else. I do.
You like the shot.
No, I do. And one of my kids from Twin Towers, you know, said, "Yeah, Dr. King, you don't know what kind of troubles we have out there, man. People treat us badly. That's why I want to go live in Africa." So, what do you know about Africa? I just want to leave this country because they treat me badly here.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know anything about that. I said, I don't. No, America's a great country, but it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress, and it's getting better, right?
Always.
I would like to believe that.
You
But
believe that?
sometimes I might fake waivers because
Cool.
of everything that's been going on.
You got to believe it. You got to believe it. To me, the interview this morning in Baltimore, where you had the mayor of Baltimore and the police chief and the attorney general, deputy attorney general Gupta talking about what the consent decree that they're trying to get in Baltimore, based on their review of what the policing practices have been in that city for years, was to me very hopeful. It's the idea that you can only solve problems in this country by governance and by government and by governmental action and working together collaboratively in order to create that intimate space with each other in the beloved community where we support each other's routines and habits to become better human beings.
And you always got to remember too that a country, as it grows, has its ups and downs. We just happen to be going down.
Yeah, and you have to. But you see,
Yeah,
the importance of practicing becomes very important. You have to practice. You have to practice good. You have to have good habits, and it
Right.
starts with ascesis, being self-sacrificing for others, being willing to give up stuff for others. You know, being able to go into a place of discomfort for yourself for others. You know, in this country, what I get very upset with sometimes is that we want austerity for the poor folks who can hardly afford it. But we don't want to sacrifice for ourselves. We don't want to be the prime mover in sacrificing for others. And that's what you do when you're great, when you're a warrior, not a warrior. I like that. I want to be a warrior, not a warrior.
Yeah, because excessive worry just does nothing.
No, just causes stress and excess stress
Yeah,
causes
warrior.
medical conditions.
So,
Yeah.
And then you
Francisco,
have to come to Dr. King and
this was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
And you think we can do this again?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank
So let's adjourn this.
good. And you were on Facebook Live until I lost the signal.
Okay, cool.
So, but that was for quite a while.